Israel has passed a law on Monday banning the UN Palestinian Refugee Agency, that would be UNRWA, from operating in the country, with its responsibilities being transferred to other UN agencies. Now, the legislation has alarmed the United Nations and some of Israel's Western allies, who fear that it's going to further worsen the already dire humanitarian situation in Gaza. But the lawmakers behind this new law say that they cannot allow UNRWA to continue to function in Israel because the organization works hand in hand with Hamas, citing the fact that some UNRWA staffers were even directly involved in Hamas's October 7th massacres in southern Israel. We have more in this report.
92 in favor, 10 against. I determine that the bill has passed in third reading and will be included in the Book of Laws.
Following a long and somewhat hostile relationship with UNRWA, Palestinian Relief Agency, Israel has banned it from operating inside its territory and has now prohibited its officials from interacting with the organization. The two bills, which had sponsorship from both coalition and opposition lawmakers, were approved in final voting at the Knesset on Monday.
We are turning now to the north of Israel. It has been a violent day there following heavy barrages of rocket fire out of Lebanon. At least one person was killed after a missile slammed into the mixed Jewish-Arab town of Ma'alot Tarshia. And our correspondent, Ariel Osran, has more in this report.
A deadly day of attacks in northern Israel. Hezbollah launched dozens of rockets and drones at numerous communities near the border. A barrage of 50 rockets on the mixed Jewish-Arab town of Ma'alot Tarshiha killed 24-year-old Muhammad Naim as he was leading his younger siblings to the shelter.
This is a very difficult scene. We have one man who tried to reach the shelter and was killed.
Joining us from northern Israel now is our correspondent, Zach Anders. Zach, what is the latest? Any new guidelines from the Home Front Command following all these casualties that we've been seeing in recent days?
Yeah, things are pretty much the same despite this high level of activity that we've seen. We should say that the activity has stayed fairly consistent, but certainly as these rockets continue to fall, that you're standing in front of every time these alerts come down and these rockets are raining overhead. You're standing in a danger zone. And again, another deadly incident of that. 24-year-old Mohammed Naim killed today, just steps away from a mosque that was also damaged in this northern Israeli town. I want to read to you some comments from Defense Minister Yoav Gallant speaking in Safad today. It's the Times of Israel, Emmanuel Fabian, who...
Now, the Lebanese terror group Hezbollah has finally named a new leader following Israel's assassination of the long-standing head of the organization, Hassan Nasrallah. 71-year-old Naim Qassem has been tapped for the role. He was appointed as Hezbollah's deputy chief back in 1991, and he's long been one of Hezbollah's leading spokesmen, even conducting interviews with foreign media over the course of the last year. Well, Israel is already responding to the appointment, with Israeli Defense Minister taking to X to suggest that Qassem won't be in power for long. Quite the post on his part. Well, joining us now is Hussein Abdul Hussein, a research fellow for the Foundation for Defense of Democracy. So tell us a little bit about Qassem and how he's viewed by the Lebanese public and also Hezbollah and its supporters. I mean, what can we expect out of his leadership?
Well, over the past decades, Qassem never commanded any respect. He lacks charisma. He's too slow. He's too tired. He always looked as if he's not interested in politics. He rarely had any security detail like Nasrallah did. So he's never been one of the heavyweights of Hezbollah, even though technically he was number 2. And
the Israeli Defense Ministry has just released stats on how many soldiers it's been treating for mental health and physical injuries since the start of the war on October 7th, 2023. Their rehab department has received around 12,000 soldiers, 43% of which are suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. Around 14% are defined as having moderate to severe physical injuries. And get this, around 1,500 soldiers have been wounded twice in the war, meaning they went back to serve in the army again and then got hurt a second time. Now, the Defense Ministry's Rehab Department forecasts that by 2030, it will be treating around 100,000 people, half of whom suffer from PTSD. So turning back to our economy.
Yeah. It's a tsunami.
And there's an economic cost to this, obviously.
The economic cost is phenomenal, but beyond that, you need to have people who actually will treat them. And we've seen a hostage commit suicide. We've seen a airplane navigator commit suicide. The problem is that you would expect the government not just to sign out the money, but actually to have the people who would actually take this money and treat.
On Egypt right now, where another round of ceasefire and hostage release talks are set to be held. The Israeli delegation is likely going to be led by Mossad chief David Barnea. CIA director Bill Burns has reportedly floated a deal now for a 28-day Gaza ceasefire that would secure the release of around 8 hostages, Israeli hostages, by Hamas, and the release of dozens of Palestinian prisoners by Israel. This is according to an Axios report. Apparently, Burns discussed the idea during a meeting on Sunday with Israeli and Qatari counterparts, saying that Hamas would free roughly 8 women of all ages or men over the age of 50 as part of this deal. Well, it comes as U.S. Special Envoy Amos Hochstein is going to be in Israel next week as well to continue pushing for a negotiated end to the fighting in Lebanon, which Hezbollah has been tying to the ceasefire deal in the Gaza Strip. And joining us now is our fighting that is continuing in Gaza. In the meantime, the Israeli army has just wrapped up a major raid on Gaza's Kamal Adwan hospital in the north of the Strip, where forces say that they captured around 100 suspected Hamas members. Now, Gaza health officials and Hamas have denied any militant presence at the hospital, but the decision to operate there came as a result of IDF intelligence revealing that the hospital served as a Hamas command center housing dozens of terrorists. Take a look at this report.
In only a few hours on Monday night, 3 IDF brigades surrounded the Jabalia refugee camp in the northern Gaza Strip, surprising the Hamas members operating there, and resulting in the surrender of 600 terrorists and the elimination of hundreds more. The Kamal Adwan hospital, which served as a Hamas command center, was encircled, preventing Hamas from regrouping. 60 terrorists surrendered, and 20 were eliminated while attempting to flee, and an additional 60 hiding in wards among patients were captured by troops who entered the hospital. The IDF saying Hamas's tactics in Jabalia include an increase in the use of explosives and guerrilla warfare, and these are, quote, not the battalions and companies we saw at the beginning of the fighting a year ago.
Another achievement. Jabalia is falling. This is another psychological collapse, both physically and psychologically. And if we take out the Northern Gaza Brigade commander, it's another collapse. These moves, again, I don't know what we'll encounter tomorrow, but this pressure brings us closer to more achievements.
While the operation has been successful, 4 soldiers serving in the elite multi-domain unit, or Ghost Unit, were killed, and an officer was seriously wounded during the ongoing fighting early on Tuesday.
Be turning now to Iran. The Islamic Republic has just executed a German-Iranian citizen for so-called corruption on earth. Jamshid Sharmad was sentenced to death last year after being accused of leading a U.S.-based group calling for the restoration of the Iranian monarchy after being allegedly kidnapped by Iranian agents in Dubai in 2020 and then forcibly taken to Iran via Oman. Now, despite denying charges of leading terror operations on behalf of the group and repeated warnings from Germany not to execute him, the Islamic Republic went through with his killing this week. And joining us now is Mariam Memarsadeghi, the founder and director of the Cyrus Forum. So tell us more about Jamshid Sharmad and why he was targeted by the Islamic Republic.
Thank you for having me and for your attention to the transnational repression of Iran's regime. Jamshid Sharmat was a dissident. He was a democratic dissident, supported those brave souls inside the country who were fighting against the tyrannical regime. And because of this, Khamenei's regime kidnapped him from Dubai's international airport, where he was on a layover on a business trip.